Hello, bienvenue, and welcome to That Guy's a Maniac, the podcast. My name is Richie, and with me, as always, is Farley. Say hello, Farley.
Hello.
And tell us, Farley, where else can we be found?
You can find us at That Guy's a Maniac on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course, the home of That Guy's a Maniac, www.thatguys.co.uk.
Cool. And how can we bring our lovely listeners such wonderful content?
Well, all of the equipment set up, professional training that we go on routinely, the continued professional development that we undertake in order to bring you this professional production can only come with generous support from sponsors. And this week we are sponsored by Spacer's Choice. Spacer's Choice, you've tried the best. Now try the rest. Spacer's Choice.
Spacer's Choice. Cheers, Spacer's Choice.
Thanks, Spacer's Choice.
I kind of turned into Space Joyce.
Space Joyce.
Space Joyce.
Boys.
Your aging neighbour, Joyce.
Space Joyce. She's starting to lose it a bit, and you find her wandering down the street in her nightdress.
Okay, so that wasn't too bad an intro, was it, Farley?
That was pretty smooth, pretty slick.
Yeah, I missed out that whole shenanigans of the unenviable insight, because, you know, I hate saying that word unenviable.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Well, I'm glad it's done. Right, and what are we doing today?
Today, because in our timeline, listeners, we're trapped in that weird limbo period between Christmas and New Year. You know, maybe you've got like a day at work, but no one's really there, or it's kind of a DOS day because there's not much going on. And you're just kind of in that limbo period. So had a little bit of time to be playing some games, some old, some new. It's also sales time as well, so been able to pick up a couple of games on sale. So we're doing a bog standard. What are you playing?
Cool. Well, I suppose we should just still kick it off then. And Farley, what have you been playing?
So one of the things I've been playing, I think I've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast, but I don't know if we've talked about it at length. I've gone back to Warframe. So in the Black Friday deals, I bought myself a very nice Super Mario themed. It has a little invincibility star SD card, which meant that I could download some really chunky titles that I'd kind of archived the software for in order to be downloading new games. And one of the first things I put back on is the rather chunky free-to-play game Warframe.
Okay. And what have you been doing in Warframe?
Well, Warframe is kind of a cliche. I will recommend there's a really good... unfortunately, the name Warframe is so generic, right? So we keep making this joke about these generically named games. So you might have heard of it, and you might have heard people talk about it, but never really known kind of what it's about. And the cliche when talking about Warframe is that it's really difficult to describe. So I suggest if you're at all interested in what it is, it's free to play. It's on most platforms. In the past, I think I've mentioned it because it's not a scummy free to play game. There is hours and hours and hours of content before you before you even invest in the currency that helps speed things along, and sometimes there's only kind of items and gear that you can only get with this currency. But there's a really good 2-part documentary called The Story of Digital Extremes by NoClip, which is a really good introduction to it and kind of explains why it's such a weird game. And it kind of came out of Digital Extremes, who were doing lots of projects for other people and doing really good jobs, but wanted to get their own game kind of off the ground, and it never happened. So they ended up almost pioneering, I think a couple of people at the same time, putting together this free-to-play model. And the game itself, trying to explain it, is sci-fi third-person space ninja shooter action game, but that really doesn't do it. Really doesn't do it justice. And so there's this huge backstory which you kind of unlock through doing quests, but the kind of main driving force through it is you've got your kind of main weapon, your side weapon, your melee weapon, and then what's called your warframe. then you also have companions, and you want to kind of level all of those up and upgrade them, and that's what keeps you going. So you're constantly kind of getting fed or picking up blueprints for kind of new weapons, as well as new warframes. And warframe is your character, and each warframe has 4 different abilities which you unlock through leveling things up to level 30, which is the max. And then whilst you're leveling up and exploring the universe, it's set in our universe, so it's all the planets of our solar system and some other celestial bodies, that unlocks your kind of mastery levels, which then allows you to accrue more standing. I joined it, I picked up on the Switch, so I joined it years into it, and there's just so much going on. They keep adding different mission modes, different things to do in teams, different kind of raids. Then there's loads of have really good community support, so community design skins and things for the different warframes. And each of the warframes just plays very, very differently, and will be based around different things. Or it feels a little bit like Pokemon at some point. So one of my favourite warframes is Hydroid, and all his powers are kind of based around the sea. So you can pop this ability which summons this giant space octopus with all these tentacles coming out of the ground, this huge AoE thing that pops, or you can you go into like a pool of water, and anything that any enemies that fall into it, you kind of drain their energy, or you can cool down like a big rainstorm, or you can do you turn into like a tidal wave.
So is it like all the warframes that you get, they have these different abilities, and you're saying this one is based on the sea?
Yeah.
But what were some of the other kinds that you get?
So there's one that's one called Limbo, which is based on
the game Limbo.
Traveling into like a mirror dimension. So you yourself can pop into a parallel dimension where nothing can hurt you. Alternatively, you can pop a bunch of enemies into a pocket dimension, so they can't hurt you whilst you're in that dimension. You can kind of switch between them. There's one that's based on sound. There's one that's based on kind of fairies. You turn into this tiny little pixie and run around shredding things up with your machine pistols and lasers. There's one that's based on just being made of rock. There's one that's kind of based on a jester, and there's hundreds of these.
Sounds quite cool.
Different warframes. Yeah, so you can kind of pick one and stick with it, and the upgrade options are just endless. So you pick up these things called mods, which you put into different slots, but then you can level up your mods by spending one of the many different resource currencies that you pick up by doing certain things. But then you can also fiddle around with the slots for your mods as well, so you can make them more efficient, which means you can squeeze more higher level mods in, and as you level up you gain capacity, but they really drip feed some of these items. So some of the items which for example double your mod capacity on your weapons,
okay,
they drop very rarely, or they're part of timed events, and there are timed events going on all the time. So sometimes there is big infestations which you have to raise. There's this whole thing called the Nightwave, which is based around this radio station, which has these different seasons of content, which is completely different. So the current one is about this person called the Glassmaker, and you have to solve these kind of crime scenes. So but then doing this, you progress that little story, but then you also earn Nightwave currency, and then Nightwave currency can be used to buy XYZ. Yes, there's just tons to do, and coming back to it for a while, like I say, I'd archived it. I thought, I've got time in my hands and the space to play it again. It took me about 4 days, almost 4 days, kind of playing it near constantly. To be like, okay, I've got my head around what's going on. They've also started to introduce these kind of open world bits as well. So you can go to these different open world hubs, and then there's different factions on the hubs to build up your standing, and then the story takes you all kinds of crazy places. So yeah, it's a fantastic free to play game. But like I said, because it doesn't have that easy back of the box text for what this game actually is. And it can be anything you want, really. You could, if you find a particular Warframe you like, you could just completely drop all the gun side of things, and then essentially it becomes a sort of third-person action game. Right? The movement is so fluid, and so you can, there are standard missions on all the. So let's take Earth, for example. There are a bunch of little hubs on Earth, and there are standard missions that you can do. So one will be Exterminate, which is just you have to kill X many baddies. One will be Spy, where you have to break into vaults. One will be Disruption, where you kind of have to protect these different things that you put. There's loads of different of different mission types. So you can kind of just keep running those if you want, to get all your resources and currency. But yeah, you could if you wanted, you could just kind of come up with a sniper build and then kind of play it snipering, or if you really liked a whip and actually I want this weapon to do loads of poison buff damage, so you just go around hitting things once and then you just run straight past because the poison eventually kind of kills them off, and it feeds. You can organically pick up different Warframes, and everything you have to manufacture. So in order to build a new Warframe, you need 3 Warframe parts, which you have to unlock. The many kind of story missions a lot of them you end up with all the parts to make a Warframe, but each of those bits you need to build will require some resources, some money, and some items.
Some of the grind.
And so some of the resources degrade, so when you get them they kind of degrade over time, and then some of the resources you can only get on Earth or Mars or Phobos. Lots and lots to keep you going, and like I say, you can say, I'll just quickly do a capture mission, take your best Warframe and all your best gear, and just do it in a minute, just to earn a bit of money and a bit of standing with these different factions. Or you could be like, okay, I'm going to crawl through this level and I'm going to find every single resource and treasure chest and hidden item and try and unlock these random spawns. You could everything from a kind of mad dash game through to a melee thing through to a mix of all 3. And the customization options is what a huge part of it. So you can change the colors, the skins, the attachments. You can wear different sigils. You can have attachments on your chest, your arms, your ankles, and you can change the color combinations of everything. everything. So if you wanted, you could go in, all matching. So at the moment, my kind of main guy, if you like, the Hydroid Prime. There's normal Warframes and there's Prime versions. Is kind of it has all different kind of the Omastar color palette. And then there's one which is artillery, and then I'm still trying to find the right Warframe to kind of deck out in a Jigglypuff one. I think there's a Warframe based on music, so I think that would be an obvious choice.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then your kind of home hub, is this orbiter, and you can again decorate that to your heart's content, and there's items that you can build to decorate things, and various quests give you special items, various timed events do. So your hub orbiter, you can also form a clan and build a dojo, and that's a whole separate thing. Really starts to feel like your own personal space, because here's that little jar from that particular enemy from this mission that I keep on this thing. Here's these treasures which I found, which I'm just piling up in this room. Here's a little weird bobblehead that I got for Christmas last year that sits on this console.
Okay. I remember a while back, I think it might have even been on the podcast, you used the term, or something, I might be paraphrasing actually, you were saying that it's got a very visible loop, this game. As in, you're very, very aware of the loop of being at the home hub, making everything pretty, then go out and do a thing, and then come back and make everything pretty again. Is that is that true? Does that still stand?
Yeah, and there's almost. I think there's too much to do. So where I picked it up from not playing it a while ago, I had 2 kind of open storyline missions. One of which was I had to kill 60 of a certain kind of enemy to fill a vessel, which you then take to a tomb on another planet, which then you get another vessel where you have to fill blah blah blah. And you have to hit a wiki to work out. All you've got is this obscure symbol on a jar, and there are hundreds of different enemy types, and some of which only spawn on certain different maps. So there was that to do. Then there was the Nightwave thing to progress. Then you have various syndicates, and then on each of these open worlds there's various factions, and you get stuff from upping the standing for doing stuff for them, be it farming resources or doing bounties or taking down these huge creatures. And so there is that bit of panic of like, okay, how do I best use my time? And at the same time, all you're burning through all your resources building stuff, and you want to build stuff because then you can level it up and then kind of chuck it away. But that all feeds towards your ultimate kind of big leveling up process. So yeah, it's trying. Do I just spend my time just running the same map over and over and over again because I know that I need loads of this resource and I've just burned through it, or do I try and progress the storylines, or also on each planet, once you go through all the levels, you have like a challenge where you fight a warframe, and then that will unlock another planet, and all the nodes that you do a successful mission on essentially all contribute towards your kind of mastery level, which is the thing that sits on top of your weapon levels. And it's so to the first time you launch it, and there's menus and sub menus and there's mods and there's endo and there's this, what is this on the ship? It can be really just overwhelming, and for a while I might have discussed it on the podcast before. So I was playing it with a friend, and we were kind of playing at the same time.
I love the fact that you tripped over that a little bit.
I
was playing it with a friend.
I couldn't remember which tag to go with, and there's one there's one podcast friendly tag, and there's one not so podcast friendly tag that he sometimes goes by. But we'd been playing it for that 8 weeks before realizing that we'd completely missed this aspect of it, which is really key to your character getting better, and we had no idea. And then one of us would get ahead in the kind of main overarching story. They'd be like, oh my god, go through this mission because this happens. It is a bit, I will say, for the richness of the lore about these different 3 main factions and various different characters. Of course, there's bosses there. It does get a bit silly, and you do find yourself kind of skipping through these cutscenes that they occasionally throw at you, because it's all just space ninja nonsense. What is really going on? But loads there for the Warframe wiki is just packed with all this content about this is this and this is secretly this, and there's incidental details here and there. But yeah, it's a lot, and I'm kind of glad that I'm coming to it now. With a slight tinge of regret that if this had come out again, I think we mentioned this on the podcast the other day, if this came out when we were 10 years younger, this would just be all we do, and it'd never end. Everyone would be on it. Yeah, because it's just a really good package, and you don't have to pay a single thing for it, which is perhaps the most astonishing.
What if you did pay money for it? What do you get? Everything quicker?
There are some items. There are some kind of warframes and skins and cosmetics and weapons that you can only really buy with this paid for category, which is platinum. So you can just straight up go to the online store and buy it. But also it is a massively multiplayer game. So you can team up with, I think it's 3 others to do any missions, but then there are these kind of relays. So you can, if you pick up a particular kind of item, and there's various different ways to unlock items, you can kind of trade them for this currency, this platinum. And you can also use platinum to speed up the building. So for example, if you're building a warframe, and you need these 3 components, and then once you get those 3 components, you then need to build the warframe. some of those things I think take 12 hours to build, or 48 hours to build, and so you can kind of use your platinum to speed it up. But then for many things, there are some platinum exclusive items. You can also you could just straight up buy it, or you could spend the kind of not the money, but the credits that you get in game to buy a blueprint, and then from the blueprint you can see what you need to buy. So yeah, there's lots of different options. But I think that's how they make their money. There's I think it's called Prime Access, I think, which essentially is a big subscription cost, and then that just means you get all the new wave of content you just get for free rather than kind of having to farm it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really good. I probably won't stick with it for a while, but it's because it's definitely an evening destroyer.
It feels like a lot of these mobile games which have the multiple currencies that you have to sort of grind each one. I mean, I've never touched it because I remember when it first came out, that was quite a while ago. That was 2004 or something like that.
When it originally launched, yeah, it would have been, yeah.
And people were psyched for it, but it got it didn't get great reviews on launch. And I think they added so much to it that it's become like a whole different game since.
Yeah, no. Well, since I started playing it, what was it, 2 years ago? Yeah, there are bits to it which have completely changed. You know, they're always adding new modes. And it's like, okay, then there's this bit where you have to, which is kind of like ship-to-ship based combat. And then there's an excellent photo mode, and then on top of that there's a fighting game that's buried in there, so you can kind of, with enough currency with one of these syndicates, you can buy like an arcade cabinet, and then as you're doing missions you can find these little things which, if you scan, unlock different fighters for this beat 'em up. There's a kind of a whole music mechanic which I've only just started finding bits for. So yeah, it can really be whatever you want it to be. And occasionally when you log into these open world areas or go to one of these relays, it's kind of, imagine Deep Space Nine basically. You head to Deep Space Nine, and you'll see other people in their warframes, and sometimes you can tell who the dedicated players are, because it makes you feel like
they've got a bobblehead hanging off of their shoulder.
Yeah, well, it makes you feel like some dirty street urchin in like, this is a common warframe that you've leveled up, and they swan through with some multicolored thing, leaving a trail of petals as they go, and their whatever butterfly wings are clipping through the scenery because they take up half the, wow, not even near, never even seen any of that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, how'd you get it? So yeah, having a lot of fun, but I guess, and it would be a lot more fun. Unfortunately, my friend who's playing doesn't get time to play it. If there are a bunch of you, I could see that, just being life absorbing. Working with 3 other people to harvest, farm for certain resources, or we're gonna crack these void relics, or we're going to try and hunt for this warframe where you have to do these bosses a certain number of times for a chance for one of the 3 bits you need for a warframe to drop. Yeah, lovely game.
One day, maybe, eventually, at some point, I will actually install it and play it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. I think you have to throw yourself at it and be frustrated for a week. Just feel like, I don't know what I'm doing, and then it'll either click or it won't, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I recommend this documentary is a good way to start, because the kind of how it came about.
I mean, that is a fucking statement by itself, Farley. Listen to yourself. Before you play this game, watch this documentary.
Watch this 2-part hour-long documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
To get a flavour for whether you think it's for you or not. And the community side of it is great. There's podcasts and various updates, and I imagine hardcore Warframe players would say playing it on the Switch is probably not the best way to play it. There's a few kind of Switch exclusive things, but that's another part of the wonder of it, right? Is when you're playing it in handheld. So how am I playing this huge MMO on a handheld system, and it looks great. Frequently hundreds of screenshots from doing stuff on Warframe. Saying, oh my god, look at that planet exploding, or this random vista that you come across in the background of a level, right? If you ever take the chance to stop and look around, you're like, oh, this looks great.
Insert Ferris Bueller quote.
Yeah. That's probably enough waffling on about Warframe, and like I say, I'll probably fall off it when time becomes a little bit scarcer. But I guess that brings me on to, what are you playing?
Well, Farley, glad you asked. So I have been playing, with Christmas sort of upon us, and last year I had a great time just sort of rushing through playing Mario Odyssey, and I thought I would try and recapture that, because for our keen listeners, they'll remember that I bought the Mario 3-pack, or whatever the 35th anniversary thing it was called.
3D All-Stars, is it? All-Stars 3D?
Yeah, so Mario 3D All-Stars, Ninja Gaiden, Tenkaichi 4. It's I decided to fire that one up, and I started playing Super Mario Galaxy for the first time ever.
Right. 13 years after release.
13 years after release. Well, I mean, I wasn't a fan of the Wii, and then it was never released on any other system. So it was kind of... That's where it kind of just died. Like, alright, okay, well, that's that Mario game dead to me. Oh, and plus I hadn't finished Mario Sunshine. Oh, no, I had finished Mario Sunshine. Yeah. Anyway, so I went and started playing that. And it was... I mean, it is what it is. It is another Mario game. And I started playing it. And I was playing the first sort of couple of levels, I'm guessing, which are tutorial-esque levels. I bounced around. I collected things on the screen by waving my not a Wiimote about. I was able to do the jumps, and like, alright, okay, so they've kept most of the same. The main difference here is he's got a spin jump, which can do things and knock people out and stuff like that.
Yeah, it also gives you sort of a double jump, right? So more time in the air.
Yeah. So you can do your duck flip and then spin, which is quite cool. And of course you can, like, I was just spending most of my time jumping up and down on a star's head, trying to jump as high as I could, because that's what you do. I sort of went around. I was collecting the bits. I thought, right, okay, these are near infinite supply, and then you find out that you can use them to also stun the enemies. Like, okay, cool. I get where this is going. I didn't think the controls were that bad. I mentioned it briefly to you, and you were like, they're vastly inferior, and people were like complaining about it online, but I thought, like, this feels like I'm using a Wiimote. I don't understand what the difference is. Do you know? Do you have any opinions on that?
No, I think this is something that's come up before, because I think we specifically mentioned Super Mario Galaxy, like, well, that's never going to come back because the Wiimote. The Wiimote and the nunchuck was such an integral part to how you played that game, and I think the Joy-Con, I'd have to have hands-on. So I think, the Joy-Cons can do, can kind of do what they were doing, but it's also that matter of timing, right? So if you were playing this when we were playing everything with the Wiimote and the nunchuck, it becomes a very different prospect, I think. And so one of your complaints was that you're kind of having issues with the camera.
Yes.
I don't remember that being an issue at all. I don't remember seeing that being an issue at all. So it might be because you're kind of playing an older game The motion controls, isn't the nunchuck and Wiimote, which I think is one of the best controller pairs there's been, because all you've got is that thumbstick and the two triggers, and also there being a bit of time in between. So yeah, being perhaps a bit old-fashioned, whereas at the time, but I just didn't remember that being an issue at all.
Well, I mean, ultimately, there isn't a camera control, so whatever there was in the Wii version, I'm sure still exists. But what I did was I came to the sort of conclusion, and this is my big reveal, this is the big thing, is that Mario games are not hard games. They're just made hard or more difficult by camera angles making them really, really hard. And it's true. I just, like, I was looking at like people doing like speed runs of like Mario 64, and they can pretty much do it blindly, and they have to do it blindly because there's no way the camera can even keep up with some of the things that people are doing. It's like jump, and then suddenly you're over this, and you have to do a dive at this point, and then spin. Oh, there we go. That's you at this inconceivable point on top of a pyramid within seconds flat. But there's no way you could have done that. And that's talking about Mario 64. But when I was playing Mario Galaxy, what was annoying me mostly was, yes, very good, we've got this concept of gravity, that's all very, very good, but I'm then being sort of forced to sort of tilt my head in order to see, like, okay, right, why is he at that angle? Okay, he's upside down, and there's no way for me to sort of do anything other than approach it from a different angle to see this. And then you're just left with shitty angles to do jumps. I just jumps into sort of blind faith in the hope that you're going to do it at just the right speed and move on. And it's like, does this make a good game, or is the only difficulty here just not being able to see, or the camera angle being shit so that you have to jump at a weird angle? And it really, really bothered me, and I was just like, okay, get to the next bit, and like, I'm dressed up as a bee and I've got a short buzzy flying thing, and right, okay, cool, I get this, right, jump, do this, and then like, right, okay, I'm stuck behind this thing, there's a big flower in the way, why is it here, how do I get there? And it's like, alright, okay, so I have to move out of the way of the flower and redo the jump, and like, this is not a fun experience. And now, that being said, I mean, like you said, maybe it is to do with time. I don't remember any issues with camera in Mario Odyssey. And then I'm just sort of thinking to myself, perhaps in 10, 13 years down the line, I wonder if I would think, oh my god, this camera's terrible, it's not intuitive. So I find myself really, really annoyed with Mario Galaxy's camera. And that's probably just my own personal gripe, because I find it frustrating that, like, I'm sitting looking at a screen, forced to look at what is essentially, yes, very nice, pretty graphics all around, but then I've got this tiny character that I have to sort of interact and move around with, or have to go behind something in order to sort of move around, and just like, this isn't cool. So I did a quest in Mario Galaxy where I was scratching a giant Queen Bumblebee. Do you know this one? You still there?
Yeah.
Yeah. You just literally walked away. You looking at guides?
No, there's a strange noise, but I think it's where you are.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Fine. Fine. Yeah, carry on.
But I asked a question.
What?
Do you remember the mission with the queen bee and you have to scratch it?
Is that a boss? I think it's like one of the early bosses, right?
Yeah, it's not even really a boss. Yeah, you just literally have to grab onto a bee, you crawl around it, and then you sort of find bits of a star like between her legs and stuff like that, and just like, this is weird, this is wrong. And and plus again, it was just sort of this weird, I have to spin round, and because obviously there's this sphere that she's become, and you have to sort of like follow the camera around, and like, this is just a game where you are making like a camera follow you badly, or if you're not very good at the game, which I guess I am not, I was making the camera follow me badly. I thought, it's not cool that is what this game is. So I put it down, I put it on pause, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna come back to this at another point, which I really doubt I will do, because I'm very, very soured by that initial experience. But secondarily, I thought, you know what, I'll go back to Mario 64. And I started playing that. I'd already sort of had a little initial first blast through it a few podcasts ago. So I was already down in the basement, and I was in the Pyramid World. I forget what its name is. Shifting Sandland, I think. And it was just yet another example of shitty camera angles. Now, I know it was the N64, expectations weren't super high, it was the first foray into 3D, but the camera angles really, really piss me off. And again, it's just like, you are running through, and you've got the option of the Mario cam, which slowly gravitates behind you no matter which way you're facing. So I don't know if you're particularly au fait with Mario 64, but the number of times you sort of shift yourself about just to get the right position to do a jump whilst this camera is moving. And then when you shift yourself, you're actually shifting in the position of where the camera's moving. So you end up in this weird, horrible loop of Red Queen scenario of the camera moving and you moving just to try and get that perfect jump. Or you've got the option of the Lakitu camera, which I can only consider as Nintendo's best idea for a static camera, or a camera which gives you a view of how to approach things, and it's awful. It's really, really, really awful. And it was so frustrating, because the very, very simple job of walking along a ledge in the pyramid, it's not tough. It's a thin ledge, there's a bit of fire you have to dodge, that's absolutely fine. But you have this axis that you can walk on. It's a small axis, like I think it's 8 point, and if you don't have the right angle, or if you're just walking in just slightly the wrong direction, you'll end up just walking on a slope which will knock you off this ledge. And it's just like, this is rubbish. And there's like, I thought, right, okay, I'll go for the default one. I'll go for the Lakitu camera, the one that Nintendo advises you use as the camera here, and try walking along ledge. And it's like, the only way to do it is by doing this weird sort of zigzag along the ledge, or like just do a big jump, like magically hope that you're gonna land it, sort of thing. And that frustrated me a lot, and I was just like, this is not a hard game if people got the camera right. I know that sounds like I'm making excuses. Oh, it's the camera's fault. But it's bothered me to a point where I sort of came to the revelation that Mario games, or at least the 3D ones, are just mainly made more difficult and more frustrating by bad cameras. And at least now, I didn't find an issue with it. But going back in time, I was just like, this is really annoying. Really, really annoying. But I don't know. I haven't even looked up on Google if anybody else has the same gripes as me or not.
That's what I've been doing because it's such a weird complaint. Not necessarily a weird complaint that you're making, but one, it doesn't even trigger like a flicker of, oh yeah, that was an issue with Galaxy. And I played Galaxy and Galaxy 2 fairly recently. I think on one of our earliest podcasts, I just finished Galaxy 2. And I'm not finding much online. There's a huge number of articles because apparently 3D All-Stars patched in camera inversion controls, which apparently created a huge problem for people back in the day. That you were kind of forced with one way of doing it. I can never remember which way I do it.
It's the opposite that you think it should work. In every single, I remember this, and I was actually thinking about this in the because I ended up going to camera thinking, is there something wrong with the camera? Because I remember playing this, and I was doing it. It was just like, oh, inversion, and like, that makes sense because every time I go to change the camera using the C pad, I would always do it once in the wrong way and then go and then the other direction. Yeah. But your brain kind of compensates for that. But I also think that there is a level of compensation forgiveness that's given to these earlier titles as well. It's like, because you've spent so long mastering it, you kind of forgive, right, this camera is shit, but this is, it's just something you have to live with and do.
Well, I think it goes beyond that, because if you remember when Mario 64 came out, the camera was revolutionary, right? It wasn't, oh, this is a pain in the ass. This is like, wow, we've never had this kind of control before.
Yeah.
So I think it must just be particularly now where you're 9 games out of 10 which are 3D will just have the two stick system, and that normally does you well for everything. So I think it's just jarring having to go back to it. I found there is one review which kind of mentions that particularly Mario 64 but also Galaxy, the camera can be a bit finicky, but you kind of as you've just said, you kind of acclimatize to it in the end. It's just a kind of going back to it. But
I just think that I didn't have enough patience or time. Like, I was doing things and it was a Mario game, it wasn't hard, but any time that I did get hit by an enemy, it was because of something that I didn't feel was my fault. I felt it was, this is a shit camera angle, like, I get it, but why is it, why is that fair? And it's like, it reminded me of like the old Nintendo games where you would you'd be on a screen.
Not even that, the title screen fades away. Take one step.
Exactly.
And the I don't know, something comes up on the floor and kills you instantly, and then it's a restart.
So you just needed to know that you were supposed to stand on that step. Exactly that sort of shit. And you're just like, alright, okay. But like, because there is no free movement of the camera, it just really, really annoys me. And like, I noticed that like you could go like one way round a planet, and you would get a ship view. But if you went up and round and through a different one, you could get a different view. And like, right, so this is this just like a difficulty thing, or? And then I started to realize it's not. It's actually the camera's organic. You don't get the same view twice. You just have no control over it. And I'm like, oh, that's a bit shit and annoying, and that's what pissed me off about it, and frustrated me. So I was not like immediately diving into it in the same ways I did perhaps Odyssey, and like, yeah, good, great, and it didn't become the Christmas game I wanted it to become, which is the sad epitaph for.
So that's it. Do you reckon this camera issue is salted the earth enough that you'll probably never go back to it?
Possibly. I mean, it is the sour taste that's still in my mouth. Any more metaphors we can chuck in here?
Crazy. Any salt-based metaphors? Yeah. Okay. Well, occasionally you do get these things that you can't get over. Particularly you, they tend to get in your head. So yeah, it'd be a shame
Yeah.
to miss out on the wonder that is Galaxy. But I completely understandably why if that, if that's just going to grate you the whole time. It's like what I mentioned about Subnautica. As soon as a memory issue wiped some of my gear, I can just never trust it. I can never be playing it at ease again, and so I probably won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you have to really just fucking life dump into those games as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, all right, okay, so all of my save time is gone. Great.
Okay,
fantastic.
great. And then now it means I can't dive to this certain depth of water, which is kind of what I need to be doing next. And it took me hours to find those upgrades, and I can't be bothered to do it. Ugh, yeah. And then,
the worst is when you have to do exactly the same stuff yet again to get back to the point where you lost that. Yeah.
With the fear of this could just disappear again.
Yeah.
At any point.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, it does. I don't know. To me, the way I want to describe it is sort of like a taste. Sort of like a feeling when you boot up the game. Ugh, yeah, this thing.
Yeah.
So I can see the camera being like, oh yeah, and then the more you think about it, and the more you notice it,
Yeah.
the more.
It's like that torn nail.
Yeah.
Oh, great. More metaphors.
Okay.
Right.
So there you go.
Blah, what?
Galaxies out of 10, planets out of 10 for Super Mario Galaxy.
I'm gonna give it 6 out of 10.
No, okay, that's not too bad. I thought you were gonna go for some all-time. If we ever fed into Metacritic, it would be like most people give it 90% or more, and then there's one review from thatguys.co.uk, which is 1 out of 10.
Camera's shite, by the way.
Camera's shite.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, let's put Mario Galaxy to bed for now.
Okay.
We'll see if it ever comes out again.
Yeah. Or if they do anything with Galaxy 2 as well, which is the same but very different, I think.
Okay.
And is challenging.
And what else have you been playing this Yuletide?
So again, taking advantage of the Christmas sales, I picked up the Outer Worlds for the Nintendo Switch. Is that ringing any bells with you?
It is. I'm just drinking my tea at the same time. Farley's talking now. I'll just have a drink of my tea.
Yeah, I just thought you were thinking, really racking your brain. Do it. The Outer Worlds? Do I?
It does actually ring
accessing memory banks.
Accessing Steam bot list and Epic Store free games that I have.
I bought it twice.
yeah.
So yeah, to perhaps jog your memory or refresh your memory, it is. It's fairly obvious. It is a Fallout ripoff.
Okay.
But it's more like a sci-fi frontier spaghetti western type setting. So Fallout, but you're barreling around in different planets in space.
Okay.
And it's very good in a way that because when I started playing it and it's like, oh, here I am having a dynamic conversation with the characters. Like, oh no, am I just going to end up Skyrimming it and massacring everybody or falling out with a faction? But actually, I've managed to resist doing that. Yeah, it's really, really. There's a lot of humour in the game. They kind of borrow, again, liberally borrow from Fallout. So the galaxy has been divided up by all these mega corporations, and lots of different planets are kind of themed around these different mega corporations. It is really kind of corporate and gritty. So when you go to these different planets, they essentially have all these prefab, colonies, prefab colonies.
Yeah.
And it's it's essentially all about hard labor, and if you get ill, you have to pay for your sick leave, or you have to take a loan for your sick leave. It's really, really. There's a lot of humor. Yeah, it's very dark humor in that. And as far as I've got at the moment, the interesting new thing is you have various companions that you can take along, or not. I think I may have accidentally killed someone who was potentially a companion. So me and two other companions landed on this space station, which is it's called the Groundbreaker, but it's like a free port, if you like. So the corporations don't have any control. Anyway, for whatever reason, I don't know, some secret bar I hadn't seen. One of the companions I brought with me started attacking people, which then kicked off a red alert at the space station.
Okay.
And so there was a bit of a firefight as I tried to barrel back to my ship. Went on another planet for a while and came back, and didn't bring that particular companion. but all the people we killed just littered the space station. So every time I go back to it, it's like, oh. And there's one guy in particular who I did have a bit of a conversation with, and he kind of indicated that he was currently in between jobs, but unfortunately he was one of the victims. So maybe he'll never join me.
So I had a quick look down to Worlds. I do not have it in my Steam library or my Epic Store library. But what I did find out was that it is actually the same guys that did Fallout New Vegas.
Okay, yeah.
So it's Obsidian Games, and they make great games. And Fallout, as I was saying in the last podcast or the one before, is one of the top games of the Fallout series, and the storytelling is amazing. And yes, very, very weird sense of humor going along there as well. But they're also the guys that did the South Park games as well, Stick of Truth and the something butthole. Fractured Butthole.
Which you're a big fan of, and you can read your thoughts and reviews on those on www.thatguys.co.uk over the years.
Nice plug.
So yeah, it's really good. And the decisions that it kind of ends up, that you end up having to make are really kind of put the controller down, like, oh man, what do I want to do?
And then look up a guide and see if it does affect your factions.
No, I'm not been looking up guides at all. And then kind of talk around it, because I don't want to spoil it for everyone. Each of your companions have their own kind of side stories going on, and some of those are really difficult. Really makes you think. And then the minute-to-minute gameplay is the same as kind of Skyrim and Fallout, right? You're picking up so much shit that you can barely walk, and then it's going back to somewhere and like, oh, this number's slightly bigger, or this has an extra mod capacity, or this has, but with all the trappings of kind of sci-fi, and then like I said, frontier spaghetti western, which is this really nice mix. And I think
probably like you get that frontier or space frontier western feel from Borderlands as well. So a lot of that has got that sort of side of things in there. I wonder if maybe just looking at some of the screenshots, it's quite colourful. It doesn't have the cell shaded, but maybe there's a little bit borrowed from Borderlands as well there. Yeah,
no, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think it's that setting that's keeping me going and taking it a little bit more seriously than I ever did in Skyrim, and kind of ending up playing a kind of lawful good character, which I rarely do. And you get the again, much like these other Obsidian etc. games, there is a basically D&D stat sheet that sits underneath it. So if you put all your points in persuasion, you get more conversation options, or lying, or engineering, or science, or whatever. And yeah, we're just really, really enjoying it. Have chuckled out loud a couple of times at the odd file that you find here or there. You can go nuts with the armor and weapon combinations that you put together, but then also you can do all of that for your companions too. I guess much like sometimes happens in Fallout and Skyrim, sometimes you flip over to your kind of active quest page. You've got like 20 things. Jesus Christ, what am I? What should I be doing next? Or can I do 2 at the same time? Very early on, and I hope there are a few more examples of this. You have kind of 5 different quests, but then actually, if you do a bit more exploring, or if you develop one instead of another, it gives you other ways to do things. So somebody says, "I want you to go and kill this," but then you actually find out that the thing,
that's straight up Fallout.
Something else, and actually you can do, all of them together without missing.
But only if you've got persuasion up at level 90 or whatever.
Yeah. Or you pop on your whatever crappy goggles that are useless for armor, but they give you that extra +5 in engineering to nudge you into that conversation option. Really good characterization. Of all the different people that you meet, from heads of corporations to people who basically run the black market. One of the companions I've just unlocked. So the 2 first companions you unlock, one of them is doing everything they can to make you just really want to care for them and nurture them, and the other one's a bit standoffish. And then the companion that I've got at the moment is this washing, the cleaning droid that's been reprogrammed, and so all of its responses are just advertising for this company, right? But it kind of fits in. So normally when you take 2 characters along and have a conversation, they jump in at various points. And so the camera kind of flips to this droid machine who will just say something random about the new self-cleaning nozzle from this company, but all the other characters around it react to what it was saying. The robot and the kind of stock responses is easily replacing kind of one of the other characters that we had, even though it probably doesn't have that same richness of narrative. So just really, really loving. They're really, really loving the Outer Worlds, and I looked it up on how long to beat. I think it's only something like 30 hours as well, which suits me down to the ground. That's a good length, but not too long. I'm sure
it is not 30 hours. You'll bump 100 into that easily without even realising it. But yeah, out of curiosity, because I'm sure all of the listeners at home or not on their commutes, at home. Yeah, at home.
That's the safest time you could ever say to all the listeners at home, because that is all anywhere is at the moment.
When you say you're playing a lawful good character for the first time, what's your normal gravity for a D&D character?
It's probably definitely chaotic. Maybe chaotic neutral, I'd say, or maybe sometimes just chaotic evil. So I would, and I have gone on sprees and then popped my last save because somebody did something that annoyed me, or you'd be like, oh man, this woman who's sitting there, and there's this obviously this safe that's sitting right next to her, and she's got these 2 guards. And she's being a real dick, and massacre them all and then pop the safe. And like, oh, okay, that's what's in that safe. So normally, and it gives you some really mean options as well. So with this one of these companions and this this love interest that you can very much steer her towards or against, it's been really hard to pull up from why are you wasting my time with this options? Away from those. I'm resisting that. But it's perfect for a replay. And from a kind of game mechanics point of view, I'd be really interested to see how far you could get by wiping everybody out. It might just be a really, really boring game because you don't get any missions, but you still pick up all the items and stuff that you loot from them. If you were to really go for a big evil run, how far you'd get.
Fair enough. Okay. I don't really have any questions about that one. I mean, it sounds an awful lot like Fallout. So I'm glad that you are playing a Fallout-ish game, and I'm glad that other ones exist out there.
Yeah, and like I was saying, like we were saying last week, about the difference between Skyrim and Fallout setting, and where you have that revelation that you're a fantasy boy fantasy. It's it's not it's a little bit depressing and a little bit dystopian, but not quite as depressing as your kind of Fallout settings. Which is something I like. I'm going back for the music and the setting and which characters I'm going to meet next, and planets I'm going to explore. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, ask me a question, Farley.
What are you playing?
So, last time we met, we were playing, or I was playing Diablo 3 on the PC.
Yes.
If you remember, I was having a little bit of a gripe about it, and I was enjoying playing through, but there's things like, oh, I've lost the controller. I own this on the Switch. Why didn't I just play it on the Switch? And all that sort of stuff. So I fired up my Switch.
Yeah.
And I restarted a character for this season. Exactly the same character.
Yeah.
The Crusader. I went through and I just started playing it again, but on the Switch, except way more comfortably. You know, I had the Joy-Con in each hand, just on the sofa, and I'm just playing. Yeah, and just
love it.
Yeah, and just straight up relaxed, playing Diablo without the worry of the loss of the fucking cursor. And it really scratches an itch. You know, it's like it's so simple and easy to navigate, and sort of change, you know, the skills that you're doing, and they're actually really, really well thought out. I think it is a good game, despite what people say. It is just like a rehash simulator, and you kind of you see that this is the game it's become, as opposed to the game it was. And I remember it when it was the game it was. You know, it was... Oh, God. How many times can I say the word was? And it was just based around the story. You go through, you play the story. Then you added in the adventure mode where you go and do bounties, where you do the secret hidden quests over and over and over again. You get rewards from that. And basically, you get it to the point where you're such a high level that the magic drop level is so high that you're just getting epics in every run. And you are either just burning up those epics. It's not even epics, they're called legendaries in this. But yeah, you're just burning through them to turn them into materials to make your other legendaries even better. And they've got like different levels of legendaries now. You've got ancient legendaries, and you've got primal ancient legendaries, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You know. But that being said, you know, you end up just sort of enjoying the game for what it is. Getting the primals and the ancients and stuff like that are not going to push your stats to a point where you are completely invincible or anything like that. It's just going to basically be, I am aiming for this perfect character with everything perfect on it. I mean, because once you've completed the season, the character becomes a real character, and you can then switch between your old characters. You can then switch gear and all that sort of stuff. It's just a nice way to play it. But I'm not fussed by that in any fashion at all. I'm just sitting there on the sofa, really enjoying running through, playing through a character, messing around with different builds, and then just sort of pushing my character as far as I can to get, you know, the highest levels before I can get the next rewards and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's way better on the Switch.
Which is probably one of the handful of games, right, that you can say that.
Yeah, well, I think with Diablo 3, when it came out, it was kind of evident that it was meant for consoles. And then, you know, a year later, oh, look at us, we've brought Diablo 3 out for consoles. But this was like, I think it was PS3 and 360 they came out for.
Yeah.
You know, that's how old this game is. And then eventually got ported to the Switch. But yeah, it really does scratch that role-playing itch, especially when you're playing World of Warcraft as I am, and you're playing high level raiding constantly, you can expect to see loot, I don't know, maybe once every 2 weeks or something like that, you know? Whereas this, you get loot so often that you're just chucking it away.
It's not exactly that, the 30-second play loop that people like to talk about.
No, absolutely not. And in fact, you just like you go in there and it's weird. With World of Warcraft, you actually know who else is potentially going to be bidding on the same item that you've got, and you're just thinking, right, okay, do I have more currency than him? Am I going to be able to? Am I going to pip this one? Or just wait 8 weeks and get it then, or whatever. Ultimately, it's good fun. But yeah, with Diablo 3, it's the complete polar opposite of, it's got items, some items with even the same names, but they're just dropping. It was just quite fun. But yeah, it's just like, and they're just dropping left, right and centre, and you're just like, oh, you know what, this one has got, some stupid other stat. It's got intelligence rather than strength on it. Fuck it, you know what, burn, trash it, salvage it, turn it into something else. You just like, it is not the minimalist game in any fashion, because you collect a lot of stuff, but very little of it else you need to even worry about. You're just like, fuck it, I got all this trash, and it's great. Just get all the things, burn all the things, make the other things better, make the other things a bit better.
Make the other things better. And then go into a dungeon.
When is your dal mio day? Awful stereotype. And but go to a dungeon, burn through it. It's good fun. So in conclusion, Farley, to your wonderful question, what are you playing? I am playing the same game, but on the console, because reasons. Because I don't have a massive backlog of other games to play in any fashion. Jesus.
Why not? Yeah, why not jump between the same game? Can you play as the same? Is there cross-play? So can you play as the same character?
What do you mean?
So is it like, does it link to your whatever the Blizzard account is, and so you can choose to play the exact same character you have on the PC, on the Switch, or is it not that?
Oh no, PC and Switch are two different. Like there is a level of different architecture in there, and it's weird because there was actually talk of bringing controller support to the PC version, but the the coding had forked so much between the time of actually releasing the PS3 and Diablo 3 that they're actually on two different trees. So like, oh, okay, that's a shame, because if you just gave us the controller version for our PCs, we would be happy people.
Yeah.
Like, great. I don't understand why you've done that. Like, go back in time and do it,
2020 and we're still looking for controller support for PC games. Fuck,
Yeah.
Ooh.
Right. Okay. What else have you been playing, Farley?
So the last game which I've been playing, again, took advantage of the sales. It's been on my wish list for a long time. And then I was feeling in the mood for it. I think I'd started Outer Worlds and Warframe, which are two big, chunky games. I was like, I just want little palate cleanser in between that isn't potentially life-absorbing. So I downloaded Gris.
Gris, yeah. I've got Gris, yeah. Cool.
Of
course.
Have you played it?
No.
Well, I strongly recommend that you do. It is absolutely fantastic game. Everything about it is laser focused on tugging your heartstrings, right?
Yeah.
So from the first second of the game, we've got this beautiful piano plinky soft score. I've downloaded the soundtrack because some of those songs really got into my head. It's not particularly challenging at all. For vast portions of the game, you were just holding the run this way button. You do in a very Metroid-like unlock different abilities, but you're not spending hours kind of scratching your head about what you should be doing next or where you should go.
Okay.
And yeah, the trajectory of it kind of tells this through 2 cutscenes, a secret third one, but mostly music and the way that the levels change and this beautiful kind of hand-drawn but watercolored washed aesthetic comes through. So yeah, it's just one of those quick, I think it took me about 4 hours to burn through first time, and then there are a few things to kind of go back and collect and see if you want to, but just a beautiful game. Yeah, and actually, did probably for the first time ever got a bit teary at the end, which is an achievement considering there's no voice acting. It's a short game. Yeah, it was just such a beautifully put together game, and it says more by not saying anything than if you were reading files or sitting through hour-long cutscenes. So yeah, really recommend it. And again, it's in true that guy's Maniac style, yeah, widely lauded when it came out. I think 3 years ago now. So it was surprising nobody by saying it's a really good game. But then a couple of friends have either been looking for stuff to play on Switch or picked up a Switch at Christmas, and so I've recommended it to them, and a couple of them have downloaded and played it and also enjoyed it as well. So it's a really easy one to recommend.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, and if you've got it, and again you are feeling in between games and want to play something that's just very different.
That's fine, Farley. I'm playing 2 different versions, PC and console, of old games.
Yeah, and at the moment you're just sitting on eBay, so you can find an old PlayStation 3 that has it. Just burn through that version as well. I'd really recommend it, and I put it in. It goes in the same box as the Unfinished Swan, and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and perhaps some of the walking simulators. But yeah, a lot to love about it, and like I say, these songs have been caught in my head, and I've replayed almost all of it since then, and yeah, it's an easy recommend for beginners, because sometimes people say, oh yeah, I know that you like video games, what do you recommend? And you could say like, well, Warframe's great, but it's not an easy recommend. Right? I don't know where you're coming from, and how much time you're thinking of putting into it, or whether you like something. Yeah.
Watch this documentary, or this 2-part documentary before you do it.
2-part documentary before deciding whether or not you do. But yeah, that's a really easy one to be like, it's a little game. It's cheap. It's very easy. It's not especially it's not especially challenging, or you don't have to come at it with a mental Rolodex of video game techniques in order to get past things. Very, very nice, beautiful game.
Yeah,
and quite unlike anything I've ever played before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's good. I've got a ton of these indie games just sitting in my Steam. I think I actually picked up Gris.
However, I think it's Spanish, so however you pronounce that in Spanish.
Incidentally, in Norwegian, that means pig.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, there you go. Yeah, so the Norwegian pig game. Nice. Yep. Cool. I don't have anything else to play, so I'm gonna...
That's a lie.
Well, not to play. I haven't been playing anything else during our Yule time, so I'm just gonna say one thing, Farley.
Go on.
That guy's a maniac.
Why did he bite me?